Next up is a panel called Decolonized Storytelling. I have 3 guests with me. 2 of them will be joining, online, and 1 of them is here in the studio. So let's start with our guest here in the studio. It's Aurore Auguste. Give her a warm applause. She is, yes, woo! Please join me, Aurore. She's She works for the acquisitions at the cinema department of Institut Français, but more importantly, maybe she's also a co-writer of the animation film Vanille, which is a French film which takes place mostly in Guadeloupe, which we'll talk about in a bit. And joining me online are Jinaraja Menke and Kevin Headley. Can we see you? Yay, yeah, there you are, and together as well. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you, I can hear you.
Perfect, and we can do the same. So welcome, Kevin, welcome, Jinaraja. Thank you so much for being here. You are together working on a Suriname-based podcast platform called Archiwantori. I think it's going to be a really interesting panel because we have very exciting, work that both of you are doing. And what I also really like is that you're going to present both of it a little bit through a video. We're going to start with a video presentation of Archiwantori, and then we're going to watch a video, I think it's a trailer presentation of Vanille. And those 2 things will kick off our conversation. So let's just get into it and start with your video from Jinaraja and Kevin.
Stories connect. So many stories have been written about Suriname, the history of Suriname, the Surinamese culture, and our flora and fauna, from which youngsters can get motivation, inspiration, and understanding of their identity. We from Archiwantori believe it is important to be open-minded and to nourish mind expansion. With this podcast, we present our heritage to a larger platform, conveying messages about courage, dreams, the love between different animals, plants, and humans, a slave deciding not to kill his enemy, how 2 brothers are connected even after death, and stories about self-love. Bringing universal stories packed in Surinamese heritage closer to kids and caregivers all around the world. That is the purpose of Archiwantori.
Wow, great, thank you. And let's just immediately maybe also watch the trailer of Vanille so we kind of have a sense of what kind of media works we're talking about, and then let's just get into the discussion. So can we start the Vanille trailer, please?
T'as qu'à y aller, toi, en Guadeloupe, si c'est si génial.
Tu vas partir à l'aventure.
Non, j'irai pas.
C'est très bizarre. Les cheveux des femmes ont disparu pendant la nuit.
C'est un sous-gougnan qui a fait ça. Il a sucé toute notre énergie en nous volant nos cheveux.
Tu sais bien que ce sont des légendes, tout ça.
Et ça aussi, c'est des légendes, peut-être?
Au fait, moi c'est Oba. Et toi?
Vanille? Vanille!
Vanille.
It's really, really cute. I like it a lot. I think we're getting the zoom back on the screen as well. What I kind of notice about both of these things, both Archivantori and Vanille, is maybe that it connects old and new stories and makes something like fresh and new and modern with it. Old tales, legends, but also just a really contemporary perspective on those things. And of course, a good start for both would be, you know, where did these projects start? Why did these projects start? Where did they come from? What are they conveying, maybe? And Aurore, is it okay if I start with you and talking about Vanille?
You hear me?
Yes, but maybe you can do the mic a bit closer so everybody
like
online can also hear you. Yes.
I think we're good?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Actually, the genesis of the story is not wanting to change anything. We just wanted to do a story. My friend Guillaume, who is the director, wanted to do a story about where he's come from, where he was born, where he was raised, which is Guadeloupe. And we are both, like I said, mixed-blooded. Like my mom is white, my dad is black, his mom is black, his dad is white. So there are lots of people in Guadeloupe actually that are from various broad. And he absolutely wanted to make a story about the West Indies, also trying to mendel the folklore, the legend of the Soukounian. And like you said, doing something contemporary, but the start of the project was just he wanted to make a story about something he knows. And that was the start. Then afterward, everything about decolonized storytelling or the presence of black heroine on screen, etc. It came afterward, actually. So it's a very interesting subject. We were glad to be a part of this change. But for me, the funny thing is that at the very beginning, we just wanted to tell a story about an adventure, mixing the folklore and the legend of the Soukounian. That was the base.
That's really funny because we had like a pre-chat before having this panel here live as well, and I think we all kind of agreed that decolonizing, of course, is a very loaded term, and would you say is, I guess, really beautiful that it starts from an intrinsic motivation rather than maybe a societal pressure, which is what you often get when you go to a creator of color and say, now decolonize this story for me, right?
In a way, but I think we're lucky because we're French, and as you may know, the French cinema audiovisual industry is well-financed.
You can know as part of the Institut Français.
Yeah, it's well-financed. It's lots of money come from public TV, from private French TV, and we are Guadeloupe, Martinique, we are former colonies, but today we are French department. We are as French as Alsace, as Paris, as Marseille. So they have to go this way. They cannot leave behind a part of the French population. So in a way, I think it was maybe easier for us to bring this story to life, because I was talking to you about that before. There used to be France O, was a TV channel, a French TV channel that was focusing on the former colonies, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Guyane, which is a neighbor from Suriname. And this channel disappeared last year. But at the same time, now the French public TV is going to show more content from those former colonies on France 2, France 3, and France 4, which are the main channel, the mainstream channel. So, like I said, we arrived with this story maybe at a moment when it was needed, and maybe it was easier for us, for our financier, to understand it and to give us money. It would be interesting to know what Gina and Kevin has to say for them to create their platform, how you were helped to do that.
Yeah, where do we start? Because we're already like now super deep. Thank you for that, by the way. No, I really love that. And I think that's very important with this subject as well, that we're very deep in kind of like both, you know, where's your motivation coming from? Where's the structure surrounding it? Who is willing to give you the money? Where is it able to screen? But
money is where everything starts. We need to be aware of that.
But Kevin and Jinaraja, maybe you could also just briefly start also at the beginning and your own intrinsic motivation, just like Aurore did. And then I think we'll very soon get into all of those maybe more messy sides that are attached to it as well, but maybe also the not messy and very important and inspiring sides. So let's begin at the beginning.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hugo?
very well.
Great. So I'm a mother of a 5-year-old daughter, and I understand that the well-being of children are planted in the first years of a child. And of course, as a parent, you're concerned about the well-being of your child. And those early seeds that you plant, they contribute to the overall health and well-being of children. So last year in 2020, the COVID pandemic entered Suriname, and I had to start working from home. And my daughter's physical classes were also canceled, so she had to stay home with me. And it was a whole challenge because, you know, you have calls, you have meetings online, and then you have a toddler who's asking for your attention. And what I did was turn on the TV and let her watch TV. And I realized that that was not wise to do, and certainly not good.
Oh, wait, I think either you are muted or something's going wrong with our tech.
Whereby we publish stories from Suriname. So we, how do you call that, share our Surinamese heritage with not only Surinamese parents, but all people around the world who are in this pandemic together with us, because this is a world phenomenon. And stories about, you know, Surinamese things, about birds, about a singing pig, about a brown girl who doesn't want to comb her curly hair. So that's how it started. And this podcast, Akiwantori, serves the purpose to it provides an educational alternative to caregivers with easily accessible content, because the only thing you actually need for this is the internet and a good speaker. And also it is very interesting for kids who have challenges with their sight. So that's how it started, in short.
Thank you. And what I really like is, well, you know, we have an animation film and we have a podcast here, and I'm wondering how those two kind of mediums maybe also help to tell these stories. And maybe for Kevin and Jinaraja, I'm wondering what, you know, the audio aspect of it allows you, because I can imagine, you know, you have a wide variety of stories, as you explained. What is it like to present those in audio form, and what kind of effect does it give? Because, of course, when you're listening to a story, your imagination needs to take a more active role in envisioning what you're hearing. So what kind of effect have you seen on children that are, you know, engaging with the podcast episodes that you're creating?
Okay, well, what I see with my own daughter, for example, is that she really listens to the story. Because it's focused on your hearing, and she's more focused in listening to the stories. That's the biggest difference that I've seen.
And how about you?
No, I'd like to react about that, because when I was a kid, I mean, I lived for stories. I have my little radio cassette, and I have, you know, it doesn't exist anymore, cassette.
They do. I still have cassettes, yeah.
And all the cassette I had was legend, fairy tales, Cinderella, Pinocchio, but also fairy tales from Guadeloupe. And it was my favorite. My mom can tell you I would spend afternoon, nights listening to those stories, and I dreamed, and it made me, you know, imagine things. And Vanille, we use legend, we use the story of the Soukounian in this film. So I think it is definitely linked. Wanting to hear stories, it brought your mind. It makes you dream, it makes you want to do more. And I think it's a really good basis. And it has its place, you know, for the rest.
I think it's also very beautiful what you see in the trailer, at least, is that people are also talking about these legends, you know, and acknowledging this kind of like oral.
I'm still scared of the Soukounian. Like, it's like the croque-mitaine in France. We all have that kind of legend, you know, that nurture your childhood. And actually the soukouignan is like, I think every country in the world must have a soukouignan, have something that can possess you and make you think you don't want to do. We use the legend from Guadeloupe to our stories, but we remain to that. It's universal, actually. It's a story that can speak to everybody.
So what was the process like of working on this project then? You were approached, I think, by the director, Guillaume, and then like did you doubt about working on it or writing about it? Because are you a screenwriter?
Actually, I'm almost a fraud. I'm not a screenwriter per se. I always work in international sales, so I must say I'm more a businesswoman.
You're on the other side of the industry.
I'm the bad girl that usually reads scripts and say that's not good, it's not gonna sell. So
and now you need to write a selling script yourself.
And then I have this best friend who loves animation and asked me to work with him on this story. And like we told before, he's writing about a little girl who is métisse. He's not a little girl, he's a boy. So he wanted to have somebody to help him have this feminine way. And I think it's very important. And as a side parenthesis, all the crew who did Vanille, the technical crew, it was half men, half women, same numbers. We talk about diversity also.
Yeah.
It was really a will from him. And so this story, he asked me to co-write with him. I loved this idea. We went ahead. And then when we started looking for the money, we understood we were not coming with something basic, with something that we say, oh yes, that's amazing. No, seeing a little black girl on French TV is not something that is logic, normal, and that will be accepted at first. You need to defend your project. We needed to make some changes. The folklore part, the legend of the soukouignan was too much present. And I had a very hard time, lowering this side, but I'm not a screenwriter. And Guillaume was very pragmatic about it, saying, okay, we want money from French TV, talking about boxes. Yeah. So we need to play by the rules. But at the same time, if you have the occasion to see Vanille, you will see that they finally gave us lots of liberties. We have some moments in the project in Creole, which is a traditional language from the West Indies, that is not translated. We didn't want to have no subtitles during those quick moments, because you can understand the scene. You don't need to have the transcription. I think it's very important, because Vanille, she's from Paris. She arrives in Guadeloupe. She doesn't speak Creole. It's not because she's black. That's because her mom is from Guadeloupe that she knows everything. So she arrived there, and we wanted to put her, just like the spectator, just like the public, like her. She doesn't understand, so we don't need to understand. So this apart, it was hard for me to manipulate this legend, to make it more acceptable for the screen. But at the same time, it was an amazing exercise, because we linked it to the hair. The soukouignan do not, take the hair. It's way worse. But we wanted to direct this film to children. Yeah, so of course. It was really amazing to be able to link this hair subject, which is a subject. I know it's the easiest subject to talk about, colorism and stuff like that, but it's a reality. Curly hair. I was at the hotel. Everybody talked about my hair. Oh, really? Yeah, yeah, it's a reflex. So, yeah, I think it's still needed. And in the end, it was 7 years of production. So within, the writing, rewriting, and then doing it. And finally, it happened. And, I don't think France Télévisions regret it, and I don't think Fonimage regret it today. So
I think they should be very happy, But
I think so. So if it can help, if it can prove to producers, financiers, that yes, you can have a little black girl going to Guadeloupe on screen, it works. Kids love stories, actually, and they love stories that talk about something else, but that they still can relay on it. And I think legend, stories, folklore, everything is linked. We have our own specificities, but at the end of the day, we all want to dream and, to travel.
There's so many topics and issues that you're raising, which is really interesting, because at the one hand, I'm thinking of, the kind of like we were talking about the burden of identity in a sense, and that you need to do justice to Guadeloupe, but then also defend it against the French, film financing system. So you don't only have that burden, but you also have the burden of being like traversing this industry. And so there's all of these things coming together. And before we get to that, from your perspective, I really want to go to Kevin and Jinaraja and maybe ask how you relate to these things, because at the one hand, a podcast is of course a cheaper format. It's more immediate as well. You don't have to wait 7 years to have an end result. It is more immediate, but I can also presume maybe that you're facing some similar issues, or that some similar questions arise when you're working on Archivantori and setting it up, maybe also in an international context, and also in the context that we were talking about earlier, that decolonizing is maybe not also, for instance, the best word to describe the things that you are all doing as artists. So how do you relate to the things that Aurore was saying earlier?
The first thing, or the first challenge in producing Archivantori was copyright. That was a funny thing, because we didn't want to use stories like Pinocchio or Cinderella or one of those stories, because those stories have already been told. And you have copyright issues. For example, Disney has copyright issues with those stories. So we already looked for stories that were in Suriname. And also stories where children could relate to, Surinamese children. Suriname is the former colony of the Netherlands, and we have a diverse people. And the problem there is that you want to have Maroon stories, you want to have indigenous stories, you want to have Hindustani stories, because you want to reach them all. But that was also the strength of our country, because we were searching for those stories and putting those stories on a larger platform. And that's also the strength of our country now. Children of different cultures in Suriname and in the Netherlands can listen to stories about their culture and learn about their culture, their people, and also about their background. Because we have learned in the last couple of years that children already at a young age start looking around and thinking, hey, I have brown hair, or hey, I have curly hair. Where does that come from? Because mom doesn't have curly hair, but my dad has that. And who was his father? And they start asking questions in search of who they are and where they're coming from. And these stories, we think, can help them on their path in developing their interest in their background and their people and their situation. That's the first thing about that, the identity of Archivantori. It helps children identify with stories about their culture. But the other thing is what makes Archivantori a strong platform is that it gives stories of writers, Surinamese writers, a platform for other people to listen to. Because Suriname is a small country, and with a small country with 500, 600,000 people, so small the country, so small Suriname is Suriname. Our market is small, and reading is a luxury, you could say, because not a lot of people read. Because you could say a book costs, 2 books cost maybe the salary of one person. That's already a challenge. But with the technology, most people have a digital phone or a smartphone. Now they have the possibility to listen to these stories with their telephones, with their computers. And that's also a strength of Archivantori, that mothers and fathers could give these stories to the children to listen to and give them something educational to work with, instead of putting it in front of the television and let them watch movies that sometimes corrupt their mind.
Yes, and if I may add, to what Kevin said on the identification with themselves or their culture, I think it is very important that children view themselves in a positive way, that they love the way they look, like Aurora was saying, the curly hair, the brown skin, or the white skin, it doesn't matter. And another important thing of stories is that stories empower you to empathize with others. So if I hear a story you go about your grandfather or the family you came from, and I listen to it carefully, it also helps me empathize with where you are coming from. And this is very important for us human beings to connect, because I think we all know that now with this COVID pandemic, we really need connection to survive both physically and mentally. So that's what I wanted to add to what Kevin said.
Thank you. And if I can ask another question about this, like, you know, it's very interesting that you work from Suriname and now in the Netherlands. Of course, also in the last couple of years, there's been I guess a big movement with more awareness about our colonial past as well. You know, the Rijksmuseum here in Amsterdam had a big exhibition about it. Black Lives Matters as a movement has, you know, garnered a lot of attention, and a lot of people collectivized even during the corona pandemic to raise that awareness. And I'm wondering what kind of, well, at the one hand, maybe opportunity that has given you with this podcast platform, but maybe also some of the challenges, because it is kind of also implied, still again coming back to that in the name of this panel, that you are in some way also decolonizing something, or at least that might be an expectation that people from the outside have of your project. So I'm wondering how you kind of deal with those expectations, or manage them, or engage with them when you're doing the work on Archie Toy.
Okay, I want to go into that, Hugo.
Yeah.
First of all, it was never our intention to make a statement, you know.
Just like with Aurore, yeah.
And you're diverse, and look at us. It's very important that we get this acknowledgement. Not at all. Our purpose was to share our culture. That's it. Share our stories that have been written about our Amazon. Suriname is part of the biggest rainforest in the world. We have the widest variety of all sorts of species, flora, fauna, and I mean, we need the rainforest for, you know, food, water, medicine, to help stabilize the climate. We need it for oxygen. So the jungle of Suriname is also a very beautiful topic that has been used by a lot of Surinamese writers, which is beautiful. I also see it in your movie, Aurore, that you've used some, you know, beautiful items of the nature in Guadeloupe. So that's one part. And the other part, like Kevin said, is we have a diverse population. In Suriname, we have 8 different ethnicities. We have the indigenous, or the Amerindians, the Indians, East Indians, Chinese, Japanese, Maroons, Creole, white, and I'm missing one.
Chinese.
Chinese, I think I said that. But there are a lot of different ethnicities, and that's beautiful. I think it has come from a very painful past, which is not nice if you read about it. But for me, it's in the past. And what is here right now is a very diverse population with very nice food, with beautiful culture, traditions, music. And that's what the stories are about. And we want to bring these stories closer to the kids, because it's difficult to buy these books in Suriname at a bookshop. And thanks to the support of the different publishers in Suriname, we were able to collect some books, some stories for our podcast. And I must say that we pre-selected the stories that we wanted to share, because I personally, as a mother of a 5-year-old, am, for example, very tired of stories that say that a princess can only be happy when she's a princess. You know, those typical endings of stories. So I try to prevent that, and to search for universal stories that could speak to any Dutch-speaking kid. And if possible, if we can translate it maybe also to other kids that understand other languages. So that's our stake on decolonization.
Yeah, very clear. And Aurora, when you were talking about it, I see you nodding like heavily along, like so relatable.
I didn't know that book was so expensive in Suriname. Like, it makes an all new. I thought your platform was amazing, but it's even more amazing
more urgency, or,
now that I understand that books are expensive. So it's a necessity to be able to provide to kids these stories. And I relate, because I really think that through kids you can do things. Sometimes us adults are a little bit, not, I won't say too old to change, that's not true, everybody can change, but we already have ideas about things and certainty about things, and sometimes kids reminds you that no, we can still be open. They want to learn, they don't want to be, they don't want to have their nose only on their subjects. They're able to understand sometimes way more than we do. And that's what the point with Vanny, that is the point with your platform. It's to bring to kids something to think about, or not to think about, just provide stuff to them that change, that is not always the same thing. So yeah, through kids we can do a lot of things.
And it's funny that you say that, because then you get back to this industry side of it as well, where you just want a film that surprises people, that shows people maybe for some a familiar story, for other a new story, and then you have a structure that says, well, this is maybe too weird, or we don't really know this doesn't really fit on French TV.
That's what I say we, but every screenwriter in France are being told, boxes. It's like I always say, money is, in French we say le nerf de la guerre. Like money is the basis of everything. So when we talk about that kind of subject, it's important to be honest and to explain where it's from and what we want to do with it. But we are here in an industry forum, so I always talk about money, because I want to assure people that they can take risk, that they should go there. There are amazing stories that have not been told yet. Algorithms are great, but it's not the life. I love to be surprised when I listen to a story, when I watch something. I get bored very often today, because I always see the same things. And sometimes you can tell the same story, but put it in another country, put it maybe in another concept, and it will work. Every stories have been told in a way, but what's make the difference today is who tells them. Who is the hero? Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Are they poor? Are they rich? These are choices, and I think it's worth taking risk.
But yeah, because we were talking earlier. Go ahead, Kevin. Yeah, sure.
I want to go into that aspect because you said something very interesting about money. We put our money in the project ourselves, because we started with 0 SRD because it was just an idea. And in Surinamese, we have a lack of funds. We do not have funds in the country because we have a small economy. And with COVID-19, companies were like fighting to stay alive instead of sponsoring. And I told Jinaraja let's just start the project and see where it goes. We used an old recorder of mine from my journalistic days, a small recorder, and we started working from there on out. I started editing on my computer, and the first stories, and that's why I like to just keep it that way. The first stories, you hear the audio isn't that great, but the feeling, the heart in the stories is there. The way Jinaraja tells those stories is beautiful. So we started from there on, and at a certain time, a company saw that. We talked to the company, and they gave us some money so we can invest in better audio, a microphone, a better recorder, better equipment, so we could make the audio a little much better and develop it better. But we do this project with our heart. And what I just said, we put more money in it of ourselves than we got out of it. But it isn't a commercial project. That was the first thing for me, because I'm like, you start something and you just go with it and you try to create an impact. And the impact I think we created with this is that children can listen to stories about them, about their culture, about their heritage. And that was important for us. Of course, it would be fun to get a fund to maybe start a series about a special subject on the podcast. But I think at the end of the day, we did it because we love to do something back. Let me rephrase. We did it because we wanted to do something back for our country, and we wanted to do something for the youth. And that's why I think we put our time, our effort, our money, and our heart in it. Because at the end of the day, this is a perfect example where a simple project can take you. It can give you a lot opportunity to talk about it on a larger platform. Yeah. And that's why we're happy to be here, because we want to inspire others that a simple idea could have a positive impact. And that's why I also love the animation from France, because it also it triggers us to think about maybe making our own animation, because it was so delightful to see a film where we also could relate. I have curly hair, the girl has curly hair, and it made me, for those 30 seconds, happy Surinamese to watch a French movie where
Thank you so much.
And take flowers and to recognize.
No,
that's really beautiful, and I think it's really this notion, that if something is not there yet, that you maybe should create it yourself is just very, really profound and important.
Yeah, and I always talk about money, I know, but for the story, Vanille, at the beginning, it was Guillaume and I, and asking for subvention ourselves without no production companies. And it's after we received 2 grants, one from CNC, one from Région Guadeloupe, that we came again, see Folimage, and say, see, we got money, there is a small script, and do you want to produce us? It's after getting those 2 grants that Folimage went on board. They were right. I mean, they follow what the trend was saying, but still, they were right. But we had to have the idea first. We had to fight for it. It was like maybe 3 years without no financial help at all to start writing, going to Guadeloupe, doing repérage, going, as you can see in the film, it's all real. The background, it was shot.
I really like that mixed media.
Yeah, it's animation,
approach.
but there was a team going to Guadeloupe to shoot all the scenes you see in the background. So yes, we need to do it. We need to go there with our ideas, with our stories, and manage to convince people to go there with us.
Thank you. I'm looking at the audience because it's almost time is flying, the end of the panel, but maybe somebody has...
Told you, 2 hours.
Yeah, we should have done it for the whole day, but is there maybe a question here in the panel or like in the audience, or is there somebody online who has a question? You can drop it in the chat. I don't see any hands. If not, I think maybe I will just ask a final question, which is a thing that we were discussing just now before Aurore, is like, there's of course also many big productions, for instance, of a Disney, Pixar, that kind of like set the agenda of what this kind of representation might be from groups that aren't represented that much on screen yet. You have a film about a Polynesian young woman and a film about a Mexican boy, but as we said, often these things might come across as maybe more a checklist form of representation, and it's easy to become very cynical about those things. Maybe both to all of you as kind of like creators or sharers of these stories, what is needed to maybe set your own, agenda is not the good word, but what is needed to set your own course of what the representation looks like, or how you want to shape that yourself, to maybe also counter this kind of like homogenous form of doing this diversity?
Again, we in France, there are no more colonies, whether there are former colonies or French departments. I think there is a wide choice and a wide, lots of people that can be consulted for those projects to come, actually. I don't see any problem for big industry and big companies to go there. Yeah, because it's a trend or something that is going to stay, which I hope it's not only a trend. But just they shall not forget to talk with us, to talk with the people, who are from those places. I may be a little provocative. I'm not like, okay, you have to be black to do a movie about black person, or you have to be, we are all creative person. We want to tell stories. But if you have an idea about a movie about the French West Indies and you're white, no problem. Just don't forget to talk with us.
Yeah.
And don't forget to not check boxes and check with us first. That's the only thing I will have to say. We want every stories to be told. I don't want stories to stay there and only being told by one type of person. That's not the idea. The idea is that we are all creative and we can learn from each other. So instead of checking boxes, check with the people. That's my only advice.
That's beautiful. Kevin, and do you want to add maybe something, or Jinaraja?
Yeah, I want to add something about the situation now. I am very happy with the development of such platforms as Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and HBO Plus, because it gives makers a place to a focus, but also a place to show their stuff. And we talked about this in our pre-production session. A good example is, it's not a children's movie, but it's Squid Game. It's a film made in South Korea, but it has engulfed the world. And it's a simple story. It's a story that's already been told a couple of times, but still it engulfs the world nowadays. And it shows you that, I've read the backstory also, that the maker, it took him 10 years to get the script, to get the production, to get everything ready to make the movie, to make the series, and now it's a global phenomenon. It inspires me already to think about, hey, it starts with what I told earlier. It starts with an idea, but also it inspires me that sometimes things take time, but now we are living in a time where you as a maker have a lot of opportunities to show your projects at different large platforms, but also at the world. The internet gives us also the ability, YouTube, to make a movie, put it on the internet, and sometimes it doesn't get a lot of views the first time, but after months, maybe it skyrockets. For example, if Ryan Reynolds looks at it and shares it with his people. So I think as a maker, the first thing you should do is just make something. What Aurora already said, just do it and keep telling stories. Keep telling stories about things that interest you, but also if you tell stories about other people, bring them also in the mix. It's important to do it as a team, as a family, but it's important also to give incentives to people that you tell the stories about. And for me, it's already a success to see that different stories of the world are now at your fingertips to watch. And I'm a movie fanatic, so I'm like every day watching movies from France, from Italy, from America, but also from different countries that I didn't even know they had a movie industry there. So I love that in the time we are living in now, gives us that opportunity.
Thank you, that's amazing. Do you want to add something as a concluding remarks, maybe, Jinaraja?
Yes, I think that we are from a small country. Suriname is 500,000 people, covered with 90% of the Amazon, and 10% is inhabited. But even though I come from such a small country, I must say that I'm very proud of our diversity. It's beautiful, simply said. And it's a representation of the whole world if it comes to different ethnicities. Also in terms of the nature, it is beautiful. And I think that as a media maker, it is very important not only to involve people from different countries, but to involve kids. When we started the podcast, we had to have a tune for the podcast, and in the last part of the song, you hear my daughter. Very enthusiastic about that. But if we would have a phase 2 of this podcast, I would love to also introduce more kids' voices, that kids do storytelling, because children love to hear their own type of voices. So I think adding to what Kevin and Aurore said, which I agree fully with, is let's also involve kids. They love exploring, they love finding new things. This world is beautiful. It has so many places, there's so many people. there's so many possibilities. That's what I want to end with.
Well, on that very happy and insightful and inspiring note, I think it's time for a warm applause for all of our panelists. Jinaraja Menke and Kevin Headley, live from Suriname, and Aurore Auguste here with us in the studio. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us digitally. Thank you for your inspiring remarks and sharing your stories.
And thank you, Hugo.
Thank you very much. This concludes our panel on decolonized storytelling. We're immediately going on for the next panel, so you're kindly invited to remove yourself from the table, to kindly